All right, y'all. So let's talk about this big boxing controversy that took over at the Olympics. There's a lot of, political debate going on around this. So let me walk you through it. First, I'm going to give you the facts of the story from Axios. Then I'll get to the right-wing response, and I'll tell you my take on it. So the title here is Abandoned Boxing Match Unleashes a Gender Storm at Paris Olympics. Algerian boxer Imani Khelif, I think it's Imani, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I think that's how you pronounce it, weathered a toxic storm of transphobic abuse on social media after her Italian opponent quit 46 seconds into their Thursday bout, dragging the Olympic Games into a bitter and misinformation-filled debate over transgender and intersex athletes. So this Italian fighter, I just want to note this up front because I don't think this article mentions it because it's one of the older articles. So this Italian boxer came out and said, I've never been punched so hard in my life. And then maybe 2 or 3 days later, actually came out and apologized to the Algerian boxer and said, I'm sorry and you deserve it. And I was just sad that my Olympic dreams crumbled right in front of me. Something to that effect, right? All right, so let's continue here. Human biology is complex, and transgender advocates have long warned that transphobia and a constant stream of online misinformation will also harm cisgendered men and women who don't comport to perceived societal norms about identity. Khelif, who is not transgender, is one of 2 boxers competing in Paris who was previously banned from competition by the IBA, a boxing governing body that the International Olympic Committee no longer recognizes. The IBA asserted Khelif failed gender testing. The IBA offered no specifics, and there is no publicly available data to suggest Khelif is transgender or intersex. However, some women have naturally higher levels of testosterone. So now I should also point out, so this IBA group, and I don't know if they get into this in this particular article, but they are a little bit sketchy. It's run by this Russian person, and the speculation is the reason why Khelif was sort of kicked out is because they didn't want the Russian person to lose. They haven't actually presented any evidence of their claims that Khelif failed a gender test. They've also come out and made some very, very political comments that don't seem to be backed up by the facts. The right is really hanging their hat on this IBA association and basically saying hey, they made an objective ruling that Khelif doesn't belong boxing other women. And, the Olympics have gone woke and they're allowing a trans woman to box other women. But again, the one fact, we're going to go through all the different possibilities here. But the one thing that we know is an ironclad fact is that Khelif is not transgender. Not transgender. Okay, let's continue. The IBA offered no specifics, and there's no publicly available data to suggest Khelif is transgender or intersex. However, some women have naturally higher levels of testosterone. The IOC, which is running the Paris 2024 boxing competition, does not have a specific rule on intersex boxers or mandating specific testosterone levels. The online misinformation conflates several complicated issues. The IOC allowed both Khelif and Lin Yu-ting, who was also banned by the IBA, to compete at the Paris Olympics. The IBA condemned their inclusion, saying it will never support any boxing bouts between the genders, implying Khelif and Lin are biologically male without any evidence. So there was this other one they're talking about is another boxer that was accused of being trans, but is in the same boat as Khelif, where they are not trans. Okay. Khelif's bout with Italian boxer Angela Carini drew online attacks from prominent Republicans as well as celebrities like J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk. More on that in a minute. I'm going to get to some of the specific attacks in a little bit. The IOC and the Paris 2024 boxing unit quickly issued a joint statement defending the eligibility of Khelif and Lin. Quote, all athletes participating in the boxing tournament of the Olympic Games Paris 2024 comply with the competition's eligibility and entry regulations, as well as all applicable medical regulations set by the Paris 2024 boxing unit, they said. As with previous Olympic boxing competitions, the gender and age of the athletes are based on their passport. Khelif previously participated in the Tokyo Olympics without incident, losing to eventual gold medalist Kelly Harrington of Ireland. That seems like a kind of an important point, right? They participated in the last Olympics and lost. Carini said she would like to apologize to Khelif, okay, they do bring that up in this article, for failing to shake her hand at the end of the bout, according to media reports. I'm sorry for my opponent to... If the IOC said she can fight, I respect that decision, she said. Olympic rugby player Ilona Marr, who is not transgender but has received extensive attacks over her gender presentation, has used her TikTok to spread a message of positivity for all body types at the Olympics. Quote, I get the comments of being called a man, being called too masculine because I have muscles, Marr told Time. I know that it's from very sad, insecure people online, but I know they're saying it to other girls as well, and that's what I don't like. Amy Broadhurst, who beat Khelif in 2022, also posted on X her support for the boxer. So, by the way, I don't know if they bring this up in this particular article, but I read that this Algerian boxer, who's being accused of trans and isn't trans, has lost at least 9 times. Personally, I don't think she has done anything to cheat, she said. She added, Khelif's body is the way she was born, and that's out of her control. Meanwhile, athletes who are actually transgender and non-binary are also making a mark at the Paris Games. Though no transgender women, athletes assigned male at birth who later transitioned, are known to be competing in Paris. The women's boxing competition includes Hergy Bakiadane of the Philippines, who was assigned female at birth, but identifies as male. Bakiadane lost his match on Wednesday, but made history as the first openly transgender male to compete in the Olympics. So, by the way, and again, we'll see if they bring this up in the article, but this boxer is actually trans, born biologically female, transitioned to male, but hasn't taken any hormones or gotten any surgery or anything like that. But this trans male competed against the females. And that's interesting, right? And I haven't really heard almost anything about this from the right. Okay. There are also at least 2 transgender and non-binary athletes also assigned female at birth who are competing in the women's division of the Olympic sports. Canadian gold medal winning soccer player Quinn and U.S. runner Nikki Hiltz. And there is another set of female athletes, including Marr, whose appearance some people have decided is too masculine and who are being subjected to transphobic abuse and being accused of secretly being men, an accusation not infrequently leveled against elite female athletes. All this comes amid a global debate on the inclusion of transgender and intersex women in elite sports. Similar issues have occurred in high school sports after a number of U.S. states have banned trans girls from competing on female sports teams. The IOC revised its policy on transgender and intersex athletes in 2021, encouraging a balancing of fairness and inclusion, but leaving the thorny details to the international federations that govern each sport. Several such bodies, including the ones that govern swimming and track and field, have passed policies that make it all but impossible for transgender women to compete in the female category. So that's interesting. I did not know that there are certain sports governing bodies, like in swimming and track and field, they've made it all but impossible for trans women to compete in the female category. Okay. The Tokyo Games featured the first openly transgender and non-binary athletes, including the first transgender women. New Zealand weightlifter Laurel Hubbard became the first transgender woman to compete openly at the Olympic Games, but failed to complete a successful lift, while BMX rider Chelsea Wolfe served as an alternate for Team USA. Along with the debate over trans athletes, there is a separate but related question of how best to address intersex athletes whose biology does not neatly break down into male and female. There are a variety of intersex conditions. In addition, some female bodies just naturally produce higher testosterone. A number of such athletes, including South Africa's Caster Semenya, have been excluded from past Olympics. So she actually was in the Olympics at one point, but then they changed the rules and said you can compete, but you have to take this drug that lowers your testosterone levels, and then she stopped competing. This year's issues with boxing are further complicated because the IOC revoked its recognition of the sport's prior governing body in 2023 after suspending it in 2019. It then set up a temporary 2024 Paris boxing unit and is encouraging the various national boxing authorities to establish a new international boxing federation. Khelif is scheduled to compete in a quarterfinal. So at this point, we know that Khelif is at least going to get a bronze medal. That's where we're at right now. Now, of course, the right really, really honed in on this issue. Now, I will say the Italian boxer who lost to Imani, you can go watch the video. I can't show it here for copyright reasons. You can go watch the video, and I can say that it wasn't what I expected to see based on the noise I saw online. The noise online made it seem like Imani absolutely beat the shit out of the Italian boxer, Carini. And it was sort of brutal and over in an instant because it's like a knockout or a TKO. No, the Italian boxer took like a couple of shots within the first 40, 45 seconds and then just quit, right? And she went on to say, I've never been hit so hard in my life. But if you watch the video, it doesn't look like anything absolutely crazy happened. And as I said, she had come out and apologized. Now, the right went in. Twitter was ablaze with prominent right-wing figures attacking Khelif, accusing her of being a trans man who is physically abusing defenseless women. Ainsley Earhardt of Fox News referred to Khelif as a biological male who identifies as a trans woman. Former college athlete Riley Gaines claimed that, quote, the Olympics glorifies men punching women in the face with the intent of knocking them unconscious. Okay. Imani Khelif is one of two male boxers fighting women at the Olympics. A woman is going to die, she wrote. Right-wing billionaire Elon Musk posted multiple times on X about the match being between the two women, agreeing that, quote, men don't belong in women's sports. Anti-trans author J.K. Rowling railed against Khelif as a cruel male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, who was enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life's ambition he's just shattered. Quote, a young female boxer has just had everything she's worked and trained for snatched away because the International Olympic Committee allowed a male to get in the ring with her, Rowling wrote in another post. Even former President Trump weighed in on Truth Social, and he tweeted, keep men out of women's sports. Speaking on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show, Trump said that at his rallies, what gets the biggest applause is saying we will not allow men to play in women's sports. So as we already laid out, the only problem is Imani Khelif is not transgender. So what are the possibilities here? Let's talk about the possibilities here. It looks like Imani either has what's called DSD, which I think stands for differences in sex development, or is one flavor or variety or another of intersex, which is a naturally occurring thing in a small percentage of the population. By the way, I didn't know that until I was reading about this in preparation for this segment. There's over 30 different kinds of intersex. I didn't know that. Now, by the way, we don't have all of the facts right now. So all we can do is give possibilities. What we know for sure, what is a fact, is she is not trans. So it says she's a woman on her passport, but more importantly, the country where she's from, Algeria, it's not legal to be trans there. And if you look at the pictures from when Khelif was a kid, unquestionably, 100% without a doubt, female. It's a little girl. She's a little girl in all the pictures. So in other words, there's a vagina there, right? There's a vagina there. Now, again, some are saying, and this is not confirmed, it's possible, but it's not confirmed, that, oh, she has XY chromosomes. She insists she doesn't. Others in that boxing federation insist that she does have XY chromosomes. But that doesn't really much matter for the purposes of this conversation because she has a pussy, right? And if you're a doctor and, you know, the baby comes out and you look and you see a vagina and this little girl grows up and is totally a little girl in every way, shape, and form, then you're going to say, this is a girl, right? So it's possible it's DSD. It's possible she's some degree of intersex, although to be fair, if she is intersex, it's got to be like one of the versions of intersex where you lean much more heavily on one side of the spectrum than the other, right? So in other words, a very female type of intersex. And by the way, you can go see the charts. I saw them in preparation for this segment, right? They have like drawings of, here are the different kinds of intersex, the genitals for the different kinds of intersex. And yeah, some of them are, you know, I won't say anymore. You just go look at the pictures. But if she is intersex, it would be very heavily leaning female, and the genitals would fall in that category. The genitalia would fall in that category. So look, that's what we know. This is what we know. The thing that's an ironclad fact is that she's not trans. Never has been. And so I guess the thing that I'm just struggling with, and I shouldn't, but I am, because it's just so brazen and so blatant and so overt and so disgusting, is that the entire panic around this is based on a lie. And the right has run with it relentlessly. Fucking J.D. Vance did a tweet blaming Kamala Harris for this, saying this is like Kamala Harris's America, that you're allowing a biological man to compete against women. This is not a biological man. This is not a biological man. And the thing that drives me crazy is, it is possible to have a serious, intelligent adult conversation about the rules and regulations regarding sports and what categories do we have? How do we work this out? You can have a reasonable conversation on that front. But that reasonable conversation, is more about, hey, what natural advantages do we regulate? Or do we not regulate any natural advantages if it's natural, right? Is natural just grandfathered in? Many would argue Michael Phelps had a massive number of giant advantages where his body was just like made to be aquatic, made to go fast in the water. Really long arms, really big lung capacity, etc. Those seem like natural advantages you can't really regulate, right? But then there are others, like when you look at testosterone level, it's very possible that Imani has DSD and has elevated testosterone naturally as a result of that. Okay, well, in that scenario, how do you approach it? Do you say, hey, we're going to regulate the top end of testosterone for these female athletes because over a certain line, we think it's too much of an advantage. And even though this is a natural advantage, it's one that we actually have drugs where we can ameliorate the advantage. So we want to keep you on the line. That was ultimately what they landed on with Caster Semenya, where they said, look, you can be in the Olympics, but you just have to be under this certain testosterone threshold. And if you take this drug, you'll get there. By the way, Caster said it made her feel horrible. And so she didn't even want to compete in the Olympics after that. She just gave up and tapped out, right? But there's a reasonable conversation to be had about what should the rules and regulations be around this, right? But instead of having that reasonable conversation, the entire conversation is based on, I got to call people idiots and I got to call people morons and I got to call people liars because they're botching this from the first very basic facts. The very basic fact is she's not trans. Very basic fact. Now, does she have DSD? Maybe. We don't know. Is she intersex? Maybe. We don't know. But she ain't fucking trans. And the entire right-wing moral panic is based on a fucking lie. And fully none of them have come out and said, oops, my bad. By the way, you guys know I'm a free speech absolutist. There is a legit defamation case to be had here. If Imani Khelif wanted to go after her biggest detractors, there's a legit defamation case to be had here. They are dragging her name through the mud and ripping her 17 ways to Sunday in a way that is provably and verifiably untrue. And I feel horrible for her. And by the way, when you read her backstory, it's heartbreaking, man. Just an absolute dirt poor background. And she would play soccer and she would beat a lot of the boys playing soccer. And they didn't like that, so they beat her up. And so she kind of turned to boxing in that moment. But her dad didn't want her to box because he thought it was like unladylike. And basically her and her mom went and like sold scrap metal and couscous and stuff on the street in order to raise enough money so she could take the bus fare to go practice boxing. And it's just a heartbreaking story. This is somebody who comes from absolutely nothing and worked their way all the way up. By the way, has lost 9 times, is, as I said, not trans, but now they're being accused of being trans, and people are lying about them in 14 different ways. It's just horrible, man. It's just terrible. And the right has lost their fucking mind. If, guys, you want to try to make the election of 2024 about an Algerian female boxer at the Olympics, and you think you're not going to look like the weird ones, as you've been trying to combat endlessly lately, it's not going to happen. You're fucking weird. You're fucking weird. So, we'll see, guys. We'll see what happens. But either way, the entire moral panic is based on a lie. I would love to have a reasonable conversation about rules and regulations and about how do we categorize our sports, right? How do we do it? Who fits in what league and why? I would love to have that conversation. That's a reasonable, intelligent conversation to have. But we are so far away from that conversation because half the people involved in the conversation are fucking liars and smear merchants, and they're so deeply anti-trans that they can't wait to transvestigate people and lie about what they are to make a cheap-ass political fucking point that doesn't fit in the moment. So, there you have it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.